Hey guys, the Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms World of Warships. In today's video, we're going to take a look at a monster game that I had in the Tier 10 German heavy cruiser, the Mighty Hindenburg. I'm divisioned up with my buddy Puddin597 and fellow channel contributor. He is in his Tier 10 Japanese battleship, the Yamato, and we're playing some domination on the new map, Warrior's Path. There are multiple carriers on each side, a very rare occasion for the high tiers. There are other Tier 10 battleships, cruisers, and destroyers complementing both sides, and this will be a very good engagement. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you guys this replay is for two reasons. One, this is the highest amount of XP, both base and total, that I have ever received in a single game in any ship. But more importantly, the other reason why I wanted to show you guys this replay is just because you have to do something that is really difficult, i.e. in this game, Puddin and myself will be defending a flank alone without any help, having to defend against air attack, having to defend against enemy ships, and ultimately persevering and taking the game by the horns. Now, Puddin is going to struggle a little bit here in the game due to the just the amount of error that's going to be coming our way. There are two Taihos on the enemy team, and they both have very healthy complements of both torpedo and dive bombers, so we're going to run into quite the air armada over here. But this game is also to show you just what the Hindenburg is capable of. Now, I do not run a full AA build on the Hindenburg. The only thing that improves my anti-aircraft on this ship is merely the captain's skill, the Tier 4-1 advanced firing training. Everything else is to make the guns perform to their maximum potential, and certainly the Hindenburg has the best firepower of any Tier 10 cruiser, at least in terms of its rate of fire. So we're heading over here to Objective Charlie at the beginning stages of the game, just a minute into it. And we were debating whether we should stay over here. Now, a really important thing for a lot of people that don't necessarily know or maybe aren't sure is when you're playing domination, you cannot leave one of the caps completely uncontested. It will not do you any good if, say, you have a carrier on your team and he sends his planes over there, and that's it. You need to have some sea presence available, and certainly a Hindenburg and a Yamato divisioned up, especially with the kind of synergy that myself and Puddin do have. Obviously, we feel pretty confident going over here, but at the same time, we're completely aware that the fact that if the enemy team makes a substantial push over here, that we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Anyway, we kind of figured that at this point, we're about 10 kilometers away from the edge of the cap, and we think, hey, we can't really turn around now. We have to stick it out over here, and whatever comes our way, whatever comes our way. We do have quite a bit of air support in the form of our friendly Taiho and Essex. The majority of their dive and torpedo planes are moving about in between Objective B and C, so at least at the moment, we do have a sizable air contingent that will at least attempt to keep us safe from harm. However, fortunately for us, taking a look at the minimap here, the bulk of the enemy fleet is also heading over to Objective A, as well as the bulk of our team. So we're already kind of figuring here that we won't run into too awfully many ships over here, and indeed there are only a few that originally get spotted over here by the glutton of torpedo and dive bombers from our friendly carriers that are heading over there. There is a Montana who's curiously deciding to go with the captain skill that gives him more hit points. He has over 100,000. That is not natural. There is a New Orleans, and there is an enemy Zao. However, the enemy Zao has had to turn away due to the air attack, and at this point, the only ships that are vectoring in on our position are the Montana and the New Orleans. Now, I get my first salvo out, and I do have high explosive loaded here, and this is another thing about German cruisers that I don't think a lot of people really take into much consideration. A couple patches ago, I believe with 0.5.7, German high explosive was buffed slightly, at least on the higher tier cruisers that I'm aware of. The maximum damage for an HE shell went up by 200 points, and the fire chance went from 11 to 13%. So when you have a ship like the Hindenburg that has this glorious rate of fire, you can put a lot of rounds downrange in a very short amount of time, to be precise, 8.8 seconds. So now we see that the bulk, as our fears have come predicted, the bulk of the enemy's air fleet is coming over to deal with us. Now, the Hindenburg does have quite the complement of longer range anti-aircraft guns, so that's why I've already shot down 3 planes or so, and my AA continues to work over those enemy torpedo bombers that are coming in on Puddin's position. I continue to fire the high explosive at the Montana and do back-to-back salvos of 3 and 4.1K respectively. I continue to shoot down some more planes. Now, I see that the Montana has already used his damage control to put out the fire. He continues to present the broadside, so I switch back to armor piercing, and you just see how fast you're able to switch between ammo here. And we get rewarded for it. 5,800 damage done on a pretty nice salvo with armor piercing. I shoot yet another one of armor piercing out at that Montana, and I switch back to high explosive because I figure that he is continuing to soften his angle towards me. Do about 6,000 damage there with that armor piercing salvo. Putin has lost about 30,000 hit points of his, and I've only been able to shoot down 6 planes. So at this point, he's like, hey man, I need you to get a little bit closer to me. My rating on the Hindenburg is a 92. And again, it's very good for a tier 10 cruiser, but again, I do not run anything except for advanced firing training to improve the AA on the ship. Now, at this point, you can see the lack of good high explosive coming into play for the German high tier cruisers. However, I am able to get a fire started. It took me quite a few salvos to do so, but at this point, I'm just trying to burn that Montana down and make it easier for Putin to be able to land that devastating strike and take him out of the game. We have forced the Montana to turn away, and the New Orleans has one off of the, at least off of the screen for the last couple minutes, it seems. Apparently, he didn't want to get stuck in over here with these two tier 10 ships. The Montana continues to burn, and I'm up at 43,000 damage done. Fire's continuing to rage on that thing, at least one of them anyway, and this is the point where he goes invisible behind the map, because I lose line of sight. So at this point, the enemy team has taken Objective Alpha, but still the glutton of enemy ships over there has more or less just stayed around the G2, G3 area, kind of heading around in a circle. Very typical of high-tier matches, and something that I wish could be changed, but I don't really see any conceivable way how to. At this point, our friendly North Carolina heads into Objective B, and we're almost in Objective C. We kind of need to get on this cap, though, because with the enemy having that one, they're going to just slowly, incrementally build their lead. We have killed one of the enemy ships, but we are still at a little bit of a points disadvantage. And it's at about this time that the second wave of enemy torpedo planes and dive bombers will be coming in on our position. And you're going to see here, when I get closer to Putin and being able to utilize my shorter range 2-kilometer and 3-kilometer anti-aircraft guns, that I'm going to be able to shoot down a lot more planes. I see that the enemy Montana has shot his full broadside at me. Luckily, I was already turning, and all of his shells fall harmlessly off to my port side. Get a nice 6,000 damaging salvo there with the high explosive. That's one of the highest salvos I've actually ever seen in the Hindenburg so far. I've played about 8 games in it, high explosive-wise. Continuing to pepper him with high explosive there. Got to get those fires started. And again, there is a case to be shooting armor piercing at this situation. As you can see, I did switch back to it because I've already started the other fire, which has caused him, he's already used his damage control. I start to continue my good work against the enemy planes. I'm now up to 11 planes shot down, get a nice 5,000 damaging salvo. And even if I'm not rolling for 10k, 9k salvos here with this armor piercing, I'm still chipping away at that enemy Montana, and he is now well below half of his hit points. 13 planes have been shot down, and we're already up to 76,000 damage and counting with the fire that is raging on the stern of that enemy Montana. All of the armor piercing bounces as he turns away, and once again I switch back to HE, and you're just seeing the rapid rate of fire that this thing has. This is something that is unparalleled, honestly, at tier 10 amongst the cruisers. The Des Moines does have a faster fire rate, but it could not do something like what I'm doing right now to this Montana, engaging it at longer ranges, and quite frankly, just making him pay, making him burn really good. The shells would take much longer to get there, and that's why the Hindenburg, I feel, is the best cruiser at the high tiers, tier 10 that is, at least engaging targets at its maximum ranges. Continuing to do some more good damage on the Montana. He's down to 30,000 hit points. The fire he did have was put out. Do another 2,000 damage there on that salvo, up to 86,000 damage taken care of, 17 planes shot down. And Putin hasn't lost too much more of his hit points ever since I got a little closer to him. More enemy bombers are coming in. That enemy Montana is at a quarter of his hit points, and he has just run out of my range as my last salvo will fall just short of the target. We have captured Objective Charlie. Unfortunately, the friendly North Carolina that went into Bravo a couple minutes ago got absolutely obliterated by both of those Tier 9 Taihos, and now his torpedo planes are coming down the slot towards Objective Charlie. So I'm swinging my ship around, trying to get it a little bit more closer to Putin. I'm only 1.6 kilometers away. However, I do want to get pretty much right next to him so we can maximize our AA. Also, at this point, the friendly team has captured Objective Alpha, but then they got pushed back slightly, and they're basically on the 4 and 5 line right now as the enemy fleet is still kind of just mumbling around there at Objective Alpha, not really getting on the caps. They finally had someone get on there, and Magi, but it appears that he's going to get off the cap just as soon. Putin continues to take damage from the fire, and he does get hit by one shell from the Montana. You know, you can only get your damage control back so fast. So he's just tanking damage for me. And I haven't lost a single point of my health points. And this is something that I really feel that Montana has really screwed up with. I now perform a little bit of a vanguard maneuver to get well in front of Puddin and soften up the torpedo planes and the dive bombers before they even reach to him. I've already shot down one plane in that pack of planes that is coming in. Looking for shots now on the New Orleans. He does turn just as I shoot. Enemy torpedo planes do get their salvo off on Puddin. Up to 22 planes shot down. Enemy Montana did use his health, and he did get back to about 40,000 hit points. And it's at this point that I come to more or less a stop. And I'm going to start backing up and just continuing to spam my high explosive. Now, again, would armor piercing be doing better here? There's maybe not. Puts the fire out. I do 3,300 damage on that last salvo. AA continuing to go to work. I do switch to armor piercing here for one salvo, as I remembered, hey, I want to see what kind of damage I can do with the armor piercing at this angle. This is a pretty decent angle. Unfortunately, I get 4 ricochets, and one shell does not even penetrate, so I decide to switch right back to the high explosive and try and get yet another fire started on his ship. And I do successfully do so. One fire right at the bow of the ship, up to 25 planes shot down. I'm about to crack just over 100,000 damage, which I just do so right here. 159 shell hits. You see here the rate of fire is excellent. And also these dive bombers and torpedo planes have yet to come after me, which is just a complete surprise. Continue to do some good work. 3 more planes shot down, torpedo bombers that is. And this is where I'm going to take my first bit of damage, but just by backing up into Puddin, I actually saved myself a little bit of hit points because it kind of threw off the shells that were already in the air. My AA continuing to go to work. I'm up to 30 planes shot down. Enemy torpedo bombers are coming in on Puddin. One of them gets taken out, and only one of them is able to drop. And now my AA switches to the dive bombers that are coming in, shoot down 2 more of them. And they are all going to get taken out before he can even get to Puddin. So 3 more planes shot down, up to 33 planes taken out, 113,700 damage and counting. And you see that the damage has already stacked up. If I were to die right now, this is about my average damage in the Hindenburg. And I certainly would not be upset with it, but there's still plenty more to do in this game. The enemy team has since then taken Objective Alpha, and they've moved into Objective Bravo. There is a Hindenburg and a Fletcher somewhere in there. And we are losing the game by about 100 points as we just lose yet another friendly ship. Puddin has to run away from Objective C due to the threat of even more air attacks that will surely be coming in. And I tell him at this point, hey man, I got to go try and help out our team and get these caps back, because if we don't get them back soon, we're certainly going to lose this game. I fire a broadside of armor piercing at that enemy Hindenburg, do about 7,000 damage, and I fire yet another one, and I only do 590 with a bunch of ricochets, so I switch back to high explosive. Now, the Hindenburg does carry torpedoes, dual launchers on both sides of the ship for a total of 8 on both the port and starboard side. Enemy torpedo planes are coming in on my position, and I'm just hoping that my AA will be able to take care of all of them before even one is able to drop. Luckily, they're able to do so. 4 more planes shot down, up to 42 planes taken out, and now I'm going to do a maneuver here that really works well against enemy cruisers that have torpedoes. I'm slowly turning in towards him, waiting, and as soon as he drops his torpedoes, I then turn immediately right back into his torpedo salvo, and instead of eating a couple or even all 4 of them, by turning back to the left, I turn to the right, dodge every single one of them except for one. I take a bunch of hits from the enemy Hindenburg, but I drop my full port side of torpedoes on him. I'm able to take him out, and then it's where the enemy Fletcher appears. Get a broadside out on him, leaving on just 568 health. However, I am going to be pushing him off the cap. Up to 156,000 damage done, 207 shell hits, 10 fires, 42 planes shot down. And now, as I'm capping Objective Bravo, because the Fletcher had to leave, the enemy Hindenburg appears 6.8 kilometers off to my port side. I get the armor piercing going. There it is, 10,134 damage done. Friendly torpedo bombers have dropped their load on the enemy turrets. I get one more broadside out. He takes a couple torpedo hits, take care of business. Second ship sunk. The enemy Shimakaze shows himself at 4.9 kilometers and gets obliterated by our friendly bombers. Holy crap. The amount of action that has taken place in the last 3 minutes is just incredible. I finally go back off the map and get back to about half health with one more charge remaining for my damage control. And holy crap, go into the cap, take care of it, solo cap. 167,000 damage done. Holy crap. We have all of a sudden changed this game in a hurry. There's only 3 enemy surface ships, not including carriers, that are left in the game, and that Fletcher has literally no health left. I get another armor-piercing broadside out on the enemy Montana, do about 6,800 damage, get my total up to 174,000. This is a new record for me, by the way, in terms of planes shot down. I've yet to break the 40 mark, and obviously at this point in the game, I'm at 42. make that 43. Now, that enemy Fletcher that was able to get away because I had armor piercing loaded is now shooting at me from behind the island because I'm spotted by the lone dive bomber that is on the enemy team. Now, I know that the enemy Montana and the New Orleans are going to come over here and try and take care of me. However, we do have a 2-1 lead. So at this point, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm going to maneuver myself into a good position as I come about from behind the island. I'm not going to be presenting myself on a broadside as I take down plane number 44, the last one that I take down in the game. And I'm just going to kite away and wait for my friendly Tirpitz and Moskva to come over and give me some support. Get my broadside out. A couple shells hit the island. Got the armor piercing loaded. And at this point, the enemy Montana is still providing more or less a broadside, but the enemy New Orleans is doing the smart thing, and he is offering me a very shallow angle to use my armor piercing. Get some more shots out at the enemy Montana. He's sitting at about 20,000 health. Shots falling in on the Montana. Do a decent bit of damage, about 2,000, but at this point, I'm starting to take some pretty good damage, considerable damage that is from the enemy Montana, so I'm just going to keep swinging my ship, trying to get as many guns to bear as I can, and then swinging the ship back, just timing the reload of the enemy Montana and adjusting my, my maneuvers accordingly. The Tirpitz and the Moskva are rapidly gaining on my position to help me out. We do take out yet another ship and now have a 200-point advantage. And these are the only surface ships, again, that are not carriers that are left on the enemy team. And once we take these guys out, victory will be secured. Get a high explosive salvo out at the enemy Montana. And now you're going to see here, I had 7 shells hit, and I didn't even do 1,000 damage. This is the weakness of German high explosive, but nonetheless, when ships are presenting you with this kind of angle, you might as well do it anyway. 2,400 damage on that salvo. I have set 10 fires, which, although 10 fires out of 256 shell hits is certainly well below the paltry 13% fire chance, you might as well do it anyway. The friendly Moskva, however, does land quite a nice high explosive salvo on the enemy Montana, and he gets taken out by Tesla Chicken. That's a great name. The New Orleans is now completely balanced. I'm up to 183,000 damage done. Shoot a broadside of high explosive at him. And it's at this point that I make one really large mistake. I kind of forgot, for whatever reason, that the enemy New Orleans was even trying to target me, and I turned broadside completely to his 2 forward guns. However, RNG is going to throw me a bone right here, and I only take 1 hit as I deal 2 fires on the enemy New Orleans for about 4,000 damage. He has 4,000 health left. I get my next broadside of high explosive out. Managed to do 1 hit for 400 damage, and I'm hoping that this can be the kill shot. I continue to turn in towards the New Orleans, get about a 2,000 damage and hit from him, and I give 2,000 back for my 3rd kill of the game, up to 277 target hits, shell hits that is, 12 fires set, 191,534 damage done, 44 planes shot down, 2 torpedo hits, a couple of base defense, and 1 solo cap. Wow, that was an epic engagement at the expense of my division mate Puddin, who did what he could over there, but unfortunately took the brunt of that air assault. The carriers made a huge mistake. The Montana made a huge mistake, not even deciding to engage me until well after I had already cleaned up portions of the enemy team. And now the victory is completely secured. We're up by well over 400 points. And there's only 2 enemy carriers left, and that's going to be the end of the game. We're going to be able to cap out before I can do any more damage. So, oh my goodness, this has not been my highest damaging game in the Hindenburg. I have cracked 200,000 once, but this certainly was my best game just in terms of the basically what I was able to do during the game, the kind of influence that I was able to have on the outcome of the battle, and certainly my presence, along with my buddy Puddin over there at Objective C, kept our team in the game, and we walk away with a wonderful victory on Warrior's Path. Taking a look now at the post-battle results, 634,000 credits received, 7,698 total experience, and a Dreadnought medal, 191,500 damage done off of 277 target hits, 2 torpedo hits, 44 planes shot down, 3 ships destroyed, 12 fires, 1 base cap, 1 assisted base cap, and 2 base defenses. Taking a look at the team score, wow, 3,421 base XP. Again, this is the highest number that I have ever obtained in a game of World of Warships. Clearly at the top of the leaderboard for our team. My buddy Puddin shut down 17 planes, and although he didn't manage to do much damage or score a kill, his assistance over at Objective C, just taking damage and doing what a battleship should do, really helped me out in this game, and I was able to make a really good impact on the outcome of this victory. Now here's the part that is probably the most surprising. 65,000 armor-piercing damage done, 67 1,000 high explosive damage done, and a further 45,000 done with fires. So well over 100,000 of my damage done, or just over 50%, was done with high explosive and fires. Again, do not be afraid to use HE in this thing, or any German cruiser for that matter, if the target is completely bow-in or angled really well, and you don't have much of a choice. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this replay. This was certainly an epic game for me in my Hindenburg. I love this thing to bits. Please give the video a like or a comment in the bottom. Tell me what you thought about the battle. Tell me what you thought I did good and did wrong. And other than that, this is the Sneaky Snake for Brothers in Arms World of Warships, signing off.